Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ellen. So today's Friday. On Fridays we do some fun and sometimes we do some florals, and we're picking my favorite spring floral, the pansy. I go over this step by step on how to create the pansy and then the leaves and the terracotta pot. If you're struggling and kind of painting something like that and you want to see how do I get the blend that everyone does on these pansies, well, there's a couple of reasons, and I'm going to show you how to do it and what you need to do it. I also have a couple of hacks for creating the leaves and some little details in the pansies themselves. So don't fret, you can do it. If you're a Patreon member, you get the traceable and the photo that I used. The people here on YouTube get the actual flower photo, but not the one with the terracotta pot. I did a little thing where I kind of take a couple of photos and I mesh them together to create an image that I want. So the Patreon members will get that, where you get the terracotta pot, but I think you guys could figure out how to draw a pot. And I also will include in the links below some other pansies that I have done in the past here on YouTube, so you can check those out. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. Also, Patreon members get additional little extra added thing at the end, so hold on if you're a Patreon member and watch that. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so I am using Arsh 100% cotton cold pressed paper. This is just from a paper pad, so it's loose. I'll be using my Princeton 12 Neptune series brush, and maybe my 10 round Velvet Touch series brush. Not necessarily to use a tiny brush in this particular exercise. Paints I'll be playing with will be ultramarine blue, Prussian blue, bright rose, and cadmium yellow deep. Really just kind of it. And I might actually use some burnt sienna for the terracotta pot, and that's probably it. Maybe a touch of Paynes gray. I'm gonna grab some more burnt sienna. Looks like I ran out, and I ran out of my ultramarine blue, which I had to order today. So yeah, if you're a Patreon member, you get the reference photo and the traceable that I have here. You could just follow along and see what I'm doing here. So I've mixed up some purple already with Prussian blue and bright rose. I love this color, bright rose from Holbein. It's really pretty. Makes a lot of beautiful colors for florals. And pansies no exception. So you could just use Prussian blue and bright rose and make a nice purple color for a pansy, right? Or ultramarine blue and the lovely bright rose. And it's almost similar, actually, if you think about it. If you look, and the more blue you add, the more blue purple it becomes. See, like that. And the pansies have many colors. It will be like purple and then dark, or they have yellow, or they have pale purple and yellow. I'm doing the purple and the dark purple. I'm going to sneak it over here if you can see. And for dark, I would add the Prussian blue, like right out of the tube. A little bit of the pink right out of the tube, and you get that deep purple. We can kind of bleed that color in. Grab a little more pink, depending on how much you want to put in there. So this is a little fun, a little hack. For making these kind of pansies, or even cosmos, or poppies. I think I talked about this a few times. I'll get my colors back in here. Mixing up more. You need to have a good amount of paint here. And it'd be nice to have like different varieties of the purples on the same. So I'm going to go in a fair amount of water. So this is more consistency of a little coffee, a little milk actually. And I'll zoom in on my pansy so you can see. And we'll do this one. We'll leave that center yellow. It's white, so we're not going to paint that yellow in a bit. So we'll go like this. We'll paint our first petal with the lovely brush, and it's going to be wet, not super wet. You want to keep it damp. When it's damp, we could do all kinds of fun things with it, especially on this paper. I might actually switch my brush. I feel like this brush is not conducive for this. I might use a 10 for the whole thing. We'll see. So right now it's very wet. I made a little bloop there. And you want to wait till it's damp before you bleed in the darker color. Before you do that, you could take the back of your paintbrush, whatever point you got, and just scrape. This is the little hack. Look at that. It folds back into the paper. Oops. And you can see those wonderful little lines. And now that it's starting to seep into the paper, you can take your thicker color, your darker color, and not just thicker. I'm just going to mix this a little bit faster. And just tap on the edge. You can kind of push down a little bit more here if you want to go here. It will do the bleeding for you with this lovely little pansy that we're trying to create. And it works great on really good cold press paper. This is our 100% cotton cold press paper. It's not the same color as the photograph, but it doesn't need to be. It's a little trick. And you can still see those little lines, right? You could paint them this way, or you could paint them, like hard watercolor lines. And, I'll be showing Patreon members at the end of the tutorial how to do that if they want to try to do 2 different ways. So again, we'll take the brush and we'll just do like another one petal here. You don't want it super wet. You want to see when it's seeped in. Right? Again, just scrape. Mine a little more uniform. I think I'll make mine a little haphazardy, kind of crazy that way, so it looks a little more natural. And then I'll tap in the darker purple color right here. I'm not going to grab a little more pink actually. And you can tap it. If you want to help it a little bit, you can take the tip of your brush and kind of push out a couple little sprays too. But that's generally that's why this paper is so great. The bleeds, the wet on wet. This one has, like in the photograph, you see it kind of indents in the middle here, and it's really dark. Mine's a little less dark. It doesn't have to look exactly like the photograph. I really want people to understand that you're not failing a painting if it's not looking like a photograph or exactly what you see. It should actually not be something that you strive for. What you need to strive for is having to look something like what you want to see, and a style, right? And how you get a style is by keep painting, experimenting, trying new things, and keep consistent with that. And I'm going to scrape again. Some of my favorite paintings and painters do not paint like a photograph. I'm just tapping again, and I'm kind of pushing out a little bit of lines too. And you can go, when this dries, you can go over it again. And then the back petal is just a flat, no color, center petal. Really kind of simple. Just like that. It's a lot of fun to paint pansies. It's one of my favorite flowers in the spring. I love painting it. I have a couple tutorials, or maybe 2 or 3 tutorials on here of the pansy, and it's one of my favorite. Now for the side one right here, it's just like a little half moon, and there's no scraping, but you could still kind of do that. You could kind of scrape, get the lines in there. It just adds a little extra dimension to it. It's one of my favorite hacks to paint when you're doing this. And it'd be nice to have a variety of colors of the violets. So here I'll have a more bluer tone. I'll go back in here. This is a side view of a pansy. Now I can do all 3 petals, and then I'll make a thicker purple, bluish purple. I don't know if you don't have to scrape all of them. I think I'll just bleed the color in this one. Kind of fun, right? Really kind of almost butter color, and it's kind of bleeding. And if I want this to go out a little longer, like I see in the photograph, I'll just tap it out a little bit more out this way. And see, we have the 2 different kind of purple tones. And just keep playing with the different color tones throughout the picture. This one's a little bluer, make it a little paler, and use the scrape again, get those little lines. And this works well with making your leaves, right? So let's make a leaf color. Now that you've seen it up close, cadmium yellow deep and Prussian blue, like every color green you can think of, and you can add in some lovely browns or some reds to just change the color, maybe more olivey. But this is kind of almost like a Kelly green when you see the leaves of the pansy. And again, you just kind of like, it's like a wiggly kind of leaf. So kind of like this, and fill it in. I'll do a few of these wiggly kind of leaves. Gonna go fast. So I got a few in here. While it's still damp, by the way, you can kind of tap in some of your purple color just to give it some dimension, you know, variety, even some darker green. So I'll mix up Prussian blue, yellow, a little bit of burnt sienna. Just tap that color in too. You don't want it to be this one note green. And then you can go in again with the back of your brush and scrape the veins. There are two schools of thoughts to putting veins in. You can either scrape it so they're dark, or you can leave that light area and go back in and fill it in dark around it. But look how pretty and simple that came out. It's a great hack. Using the back of your brush, using a twig, anything sharp would help, whatever you can find in your house. So I'm just kind of moving the green around here. I might add a little bit more bright yellow. I do want to change up some of the greens. Now there's another pansy I put in here, and a pansy here, and I'll put some greens kind of floating under here. The little greens for the one that hasn't opened yet. It's always good to have a variety. There's a little bit lighter, and while they're damp, I can go in and add a little bit of dark color, blending, bleeding, all that fun stuff. Again, this one's a little darker. This one be a little bit lighter. Just kind of fill it all in. Just fill it in. I go really kind of quickly and move my paint around when I'm filling in greens. Another little trick I'll show you about filling in greens after I fill out all my flowers. So, now that you've seen how I do this, I'm just going to fill these flowers in, put a little music on. It's, you know, you don't need to see me talk about every single flower that I just showed you how to do that. I'm going to come back. We're going to do the detail and the pot. So once that's filled in, I did some scraping over here. You can kind of tweak the flowers by adding in little darker values here, kind of where the flower meets the stem right up in here and here. Take your little purples and kind of just go like this, and kind of behind. You want to put a little shadow behind the petal here. See, I'm just adding another value. So this one kind of stands out more. You can also go in and take your brush, the tip of it, and just kind of like wisp out. And again, like I'm adding in a deeper value here. So the front petal is kind of a forefront. Same thing back here. Adding in little shadows, shades, make this a little bit darker. All these little things help your petals have a little more depth. And this one would be a bit darker back here behind this one. Same thing with this one. If that makes any sense for you, I hope it does. Just adding in some more values, deeper purples, etc., etc. Right? And same thing for, like, I talked about the greens. We have the simple greens. I'm going back and mixing up some greens. Over here. Can't see me. Cadmium yellow deep and Prussian blue. And it's a little trick. So you have some spaces, like I filled in some spaces with some leaves. I'll go in and fill in a little bit more with different color greens. And I'll add more yellow here in this one. Greens kind of filling in. Add a little more depth by adding some darker values on the greens underneath here. I add in some like burnt umber or some burnt sienna to some of the greens just to take that bright, funky green here. I'm adding in the veins. A little darker. Just kind of tapping in. You see, nothing really special. I'm not doing a specific type of leaf formation here. Just kind of tapping in. And you can get even darker, like maybe you want to put in, you can just do something simple where you take a light green like this, and you know, you have some values in here. Just kind of go in here and just kind of fill it in. Or you want it really dark in that section, so you add more Prussian blue, maybe even a tad of Paynes gray, and a little burnt sienna. Get this really deep kind of bluish color, and you just kind of go in between some of those little crevices that I left and around your lovely pansy. Give it a little more depth, right? So it looks like there's some kind of greenery in the background and the light one's kind of poking through in the front. You see how I'm doing this? I go in here and I'll grab some darks and around. Like I said, you can do some browns, some deep dark greens. I'm going to put some more brown in this one. And you're just filling in those little crevices in and around some of the light areas. Getting a little more shadowing happening. All that good stuff. This little section over here is kind of missing its green, so I'll just kind of fill this in real quick. And then we'll do a little terracotta. For the center of the lovely pansy, I'm just going to grab my cadmium yellow deep, and we could just put a little, fill it in, and we can go back in and add a little purple to that, in and around it. You can't do it, you know, after the fact. I'm just going to tap in a little yellow, and then we'll wait till that dries, and we'll add a little purple in around it. All right, for the simple pot, I just add a little burnt sienna with a little Paynes gray. You water it down. You can add more red to it if you want. I'm having some cadmium red light. And tap it and see how you like it. And we're just going to wisp in the color. I'm using the 10 brush again. I normally would never use a brush this small. I'll just do the first wash. Get it all in there. And as it's in there, a little bit damp, you can add some various tones to it. Just get that first wash in there of the whole color. You can play around with making it a little bit grayer, browner, all that good stuff. And actually, I realized I need to add some more greens in here, which I'll do afterwards. So I have that lovely color. I'll leave it like that. I can go over here, make it a little bit darker, or add some burnt sienna, burnt umber, some Paynes gray. Play around with like tapping in color so it looks a little more rustic, right? I'm tapping in a little cadmium red light. See, I'm just kind of tapping while it's damp. Going in here and tapping in a little bit, maybe a little bit deeper color down here, which I'll get to. It's damp enough that you can kind of just go across with this nice deeper color. and even down here and over here. And then we'll get real serious with our shadows. You see, it looks a little more antique already, right? See how I'm just tapping the different tones, a bit darker. Under here, on the side more, on this one. Down here. It's already looking like a nice little pot. It might be a little too dark here. I'll lift it just a touch. While that's drying, we can go back in and add some greenery that we messed up. And I'll do that and come back and same kind of technique that we did in here. I might actually add another leaf too. So I just went and added another leaf, which you can do that. Maybe we won't do that in the beginning. And then go back and once it's dry and start adding in, again, some little depth with this darker terracotta. So it's dry and it's going to make hard edges. So how do we fix that? Put the hard edges in first. And I'll go in down here, put this lovely color and down in here. We'll take some water, clean brush, and just kind of mush it like that, and you have the hard edge softened. See, again, put the color, you clean it off with the brush, and then you kind of blend it with the water. Do a little dark here. This should be darker down below the lip. You could add, I'm going to add a little bit of blue to that too for a nice shadow. See that? And then I'm going to clean up my brush, just clean water, kind of move in a circular motion, and you have that lovely differentiation between the dark and the light. And again, kind of building the same thing. This takes a little time and practice. There's tons of tutorials on doing this kind of technique, the blending. And of course, underneath the leaves would be a little shadow too. Let's add some of that lovely color again. Right? I'll wait till that dries. Meanwhile, back at the farm, let's put a little shadow. I'll just take some ultramarine blue. I'll mix it with the burnt sienna. Makes a nice gray. Look at that. And we'll just finish it off with a lovely shadow down here. I kind of go from the center outward. And we have a nice little shadow. Kind of wiggle the flowers where they would be like this. My shadow. Now remember the yellow center. We'll finish it off. We'll just grab a little purple. Kind of do a tap in the center. Grab a little purple, go around it now. Dark purple in the center. And then you can put a little purple around it. And that's it. Pansies in a pot. Take your time with that, with the scraping. You could go back in with a deeper color too. Once it's dry, and kind of just put some color in, etc., etc. So I hope this was helpful to you. And add little shadows over here. And like I said, if you're a Patreon member, you will get an additional little add-on to this video. If you're ever curious about Patreon, it's just a site where I have exclusive tutorials and extra add-ons from the videos here on YouTube. The tutorials on Patreon are really in-depth. I have like hour-long ones. I just did an hour-long cherry blossom tree one. It comes with reference photo and traceables. I have live stream in the top tier where you can talk to me and live once a month on a Thursday, and we go over stuff that's never on anything, YouTube or Patreon itself. Like the other night I did one with, we talked about how to get out of a painting rut, and I give examples of things that I use for tricks for just creating, and then just kind of create from there. Yeah, and it's just a place people support my YouTube, because YouTube is free content, and you know, it's a lot of work for us creators to do content here on YouTube. I'm going to fill this in a little bit more. So it's just a great place for for people to support us, which I appreciate wholeheartedly. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial and having fun on your pansy journey. And the reference photo for the actual flowers will be in the link in the description box. All right, take care, guys. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon.